What is going on, everybody? Got something a little bit different for you today. Today I'm going to be talking lenses and focal lengths and specifically how they relate to sensor size. So if you're not into tech talk and gear and that sort of thing, probably not going to be the most interesting video for you, but let's get into it. I'm going to try not get too detailed. I'm just going to assume you already know some things about cameras and focal lengths and sensor sizes. Really what it comes down to is that different lens focal lengths act differently on different size sensors. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here we have the Sony 10-18 lens. This lens is made specifically for aps-c size sensors. And I wanted something really different to compare it to, so over here we have the Sony 24-240 lens, which is made for a full-size sensor. Now, I have both of these lenses mounted on two different cameras that are running simultaneously. Over here is the 24-240 on the Sony a7S II. Over here is the 10-18 lens on the Sony a6300. I'm standing about arm's length away from the end of the lens. If I reach out, I can just barely touch each lens. And the reason for that is because I want to show you this comparison in a vlogging sort of environment, since that's really popular right now. When people are doing vlogging style videos, they're usually holding their camera out at arm's length like this, or they're using something like this, the Joby Gorilla Pod. Side note, has anyone ever noticed that Casey Neistat never actually says the brand name of this tripod? It's pretty obvious to me that he doesn't really like this tripod, and he probably uses it just because there really isn't a whole lot of alternatives out there, and he doesn't really talk a whole lot about gear in the first place. But when he does, and he mentions this tripod, he always calls it like the bendy tripod or something like that, and never actually says the brand name. Why is that, Casey? So before we go any further, I just want to show you the zoom range of each lens. This is the 10-18 and this is at 10 millimeters. And now we're at 18 millimeters. 10, 18. And over here we're at 24 millimeters, and this can zoom all the way into 240, which looks really bad and out of focus because you can't focus that close. But anyway, that's 24 millimeters on a full frame. So once again, this is 10 millimeters on an aps-c. This is 24 millimeters on a full frame. So now I'm gonna switch each lens and show you what I'm talking about. Now immediately you can already see a really big difference. With the aps-c 10-18 on a full frame, you can see that there's vignetting on the side and the picture is much wider. I'm willing to guess you can probably even see some of this lens in the picture too. Now over here, I'm not exactly sure how the picture looks, but probably looks a little too zoomed in, but this is definitely not wide enough for a vlogging sort of environment. Now keep in mind, I have not changed the focal lengths of each of these lenses. This lens is still at 10 millimeters. This lens is still at 24 millimeters. Now from here, I want to show you the zoom comparison again. This is 10 millimeters. And this is 18 millimeters. 10, 18. And this is gonna look really stupid, but this is 24, and this is 240. 24, 240. Still with me? Okay, I'm going to switch the lenses back and try and explain a little bit what's going on here. Here we have a full frame sensor, here we have an aps-c sensor. These jar lids represent the image that are cast by a lens. Now obviously a full frame lens is going to cast a bigger image than an aps-c size lens, because the image only has to be as big as the sensor that the lens is made for. When an aps-c or full frame lens is paired with its corresponding size sensor, the image that is cast perfectly covers the entirety of the sensor. Now if you take each lens and you switch them around, you'll see that the image that is cast by the full frame lens is not big enough to cover the entire sensor, and that's why you get your vignetting around the corners. And with a full frame lens on an aps-c size sensor, the image that is cast is much bigger than the size of the sensor, so thus your image will appear zoomed in. Side note, if you want to know what the focal length of your lens will be on a different size sensor, simply multiply or divide your lens's focal length by the crop factor of your camera sensor. Full frame sensors don't have a crop factor since that's the standard we measure by, so we can say that full frame sensors have a crop factor of 1. Sony aps-c sensors have a crop factor of 1.5. Canon aps-c sensors have a crop factor of 1.6. It varies by manufacturer. So using this formula, I know that 24 millimeters is going to look like 36 millimeters on an aps-c size Sony sensor. And I know that 10 millimeters on an aps-c lens is going to look like 6 millimeters, I think? 6.66. Keep in mind this formula is not exact, as there are other factors that affect your focal length when using your lens on different size sensors, but that'll give you a pretty good rough estimate. Now there's a lot of debate whether one should be using aps-c size lenses on full frames and vice versa, so I'm not really going to get into that. But really when it comes to any type of visual art, there's only one person that you should be listening to, and that is yourself. Trust your eyes, do your own test, and see if that works. My personal opinion, I think it ultimately comes down to what kind of cameras you're using, what kind of lenses you're using. Every piece of equipment works differently, so do your own test. Let your eyes tell you what works best for you. So that's it for this one. I hope this was informative for you. If it was, please give that like button a hit and let me know in the comments below. Do you mix up your lenses with different size sensors? Have you noticed a difference? What has been your experience? I'd love to hear from you guys. And if you'd like to see more of me, please hit that subscribe button and maybe let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Thanks for watching. Again, I hope you found this informative, and I'll see you in the next one.